I started investing in real estate when I was 23 years old. And at the time, I read everything I could get. I went to classes. I tried to learn as much as I could about how to invest in real estate. The problem was I basically had too much information. It was a little overwhelming. And what I really needed was to figure out what's the next step. I needed a framework that would take me from being a brand new beginner all the way to doing my next deal or my first deal. Now, I can't go back in time and help my 23-year-old self, but if you are a beginner, I can help you. I've been investing in real estate for almost 18 years, and the steps I'm about to share with you, 9 steps, are what I would do if I were starting back over. And we're gonna get into this right now. Welcome to Coach Carson TV. My name is Chad Carson. You can also call me Coach, and this is a channel all about investing in real estate so you can achieve financial independence and do more of what matters. If you're brand new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the little bell so you don't miss anything. Now let's jump right into the 9 steps. I'm gonna give you as much as I can right here in this YouTube video, but it's impossible to tell you everything you need to know. So I've also put some additional resources for each one of these steps you can find in the description below the video. So step number 1 actually doesn't have anything to do with real estate investing. It has to do with something called your wealth stage. And you can think about this a lot like you were climbing a mountain, and think of the top of the mountain as financial independence. It's where you want to go financially and meet your goals. But all of us are at some point along that mountain. And if we're honest with ourselves, we've all started at the bottom. And so wherever you are, the key is to be honest with yourself. You can kind of divide the mountain into 3 different stages. At the bottom of the mountain, you're trying to survive. You're just trying to get stable financially. And this is important to know because different real estate strategies that I'm going to talk about in step 2, there are better strategies for different stages of the mountain. So if you're in survival stage, if you're at the bottom of the mountain, it's okay. Don't beat yourself up about that, but you need to focus more on getting income and actually getting some emergency funds, getting your bills paid. And so real estate, if at all, needs to help you with that. As you move up the mountain, you might get into a saver stage or where you're building wealth, where you're actually investing some of that money and trying to grow a small nest egg into a big nest egg. That is the kind of epitome of wealth building, and real estate's really good for that as well. And as you get closer to the top of the mountain, you are trying to turn that wealth you have into income, into something you can live off of so you don't have to work a job anymore. So you can think about that as the income stage or the withdrawal stage. And so depending on where you are, it's gonna depend on what we're gonna talk about in step number 2. So if you don't mind, leave me a comment below. Let me know which one of those 3 stages best describes you. And don't worry about it, wherever you are is cool. We've all been there. But just let me know in the comments and then we'll go to step number 2. Step number 2 is to pick a real estate strategy. So this step is all about focus. And you have a long career when you can do all sorts of different strategies. You can be a buy and hold landlord and have rental properties. You can flip properties, you can wholesale, you can do house hacking, you can do the BRRRR strategy. There's a long list, and then if you look at additional resources in the description, I'll give you a list of a lot of different strategies that can work for you. But at this step, you gotta pick one. And remember the last step where we talked about your wealth stages? A lot of what focuses the strategy for you is where you are on those wealth stages. If you're in the beginning, survival stage, where you're just trying to make ends meet, you might need to get a job in real estate if that's really what you wanna do. And if you have a full-time job, get one on the side. You could become a real estate agent, get your license. You can consider doing wholesaling, which is the business of buying properties at a low price and then assigning them or making a little small fee selling them to other people. I actually pick and recommend real estate licensing instead of wholesaling when you're first starting. I find it's an easier way to make money right away. But you could also consider like house hacking, doing something where you make your residence an investment. It's a great way to have a hybrid between something you have to have, a place to live, and an investment that could eventually become a rental property. So those are good strategies for brand new or early stage people. As you move up the mountain, you could also consider any of those, but also more traditional things like buying rental properties, using the BRRRR strategy, where you buy a property that's a fixer-upper, you refinance it to pull back a lot of your down payment money back out, and you do it again and you do it again until you can grow and build wealth as a real estate investor. If you find yourself kind of closer to the top of the mountain where you have a big chunk of wealth already, your strategy is a little bit more about income. It's about reducing risk. It's about reducing the amount of hassle you have in your life so that you can travel, so you can be flexible. And so there's different types of properties that you're gonna buy, but it might be something like buy and hold, real estate investing with less debt. You might wanna loan money to other people and make interest. So there's a lot of possibilities there, but at this stage, pick one, maybe two, but probably one strategy, and then let's move on to step number 3. Now that you've gotten focused on a strategy, it's time to move to step number 3, which is to pick a target market. Now you can think about real estate investing a lot like farming or gardening. You want to have fertile soil before you start planting seeds. And fertile soil for a real estate investing business is to pick a market that has a good mixture of being a quality market. So you have good demand from jobs, there's good business, there's good growth in population. So you want a region that's doing well, and most regions in the United States are doing fairly well, but you don't want to pick areas where the plant shut down and everybody's moving out of town. Then once you get into the micro part of a market, you want to find neighborhoods and streets that have quality where people want to live. And you got to really study and understand, is it people want to be near parks? They want to be in a good school district? Every location is a little bit different. It's what makes it really interesting. But you pick quality locations, and then you also have to pick places where the finances, where the numbers make sense. And I know this is a big topic I get asked about a lot about. If you're in downtown San Francisco or you're in Manhattan, the prices and the rents, for example, don't really work that well. And so you might need to go to another location or maybe another niche within your market. Can you go 30 minutes out of town, 45 minutes out of town to find another little location that's up and coming, that's not as great right now, but it's kind of on the way up? And so you want to find a good relationship between quality real estate and income or other parts of real estate investing where you're gonna make money, the numbers basically, and find a good balance between those two. I have some additional resources in the description that'll tell you more details on how to figure out what that market is. Now, step number 4 is to have defined criteria for what it means to have a good real estate investing deal. In other words, you gotta run the numbers. Now this is a whole video in and of itself, and I actually have another video that you can find in the description for this one, where you can go into more detail on a lot of different formulas that I like to use. But in summary, you wanna look at 2 things when you're running the numbers. Number 1, how good is a property at producing income? And number 2, what price are you paying for the property? Are you buying it below value? You can pretty much summarize real estate investing in all of the ways to make money is buying low and selling high. The only difference is sometimes you're flipping a property, buying it low and selling it high quickly. Other times you're holding it over the long run and you're buying it at a lower price than what the long-term value of all that income and the price is eventually gonna be worth. So you can kind of break it down that way, but there are some ways you can measure that. And so on these written criteria that I recommend you have, you could be really basic. You could use things like the 1% rule to kind of screen your deals. You could use things like your net income after financing, like how much income are you gonna make after you pay all your bills. You could use things like a cap rate, a cash on cash return. And then you can also look at the price and just say, how far below the current value am I buying it for? Is it 10%? Is it 20%? And so you can make some goals on that. And you can write down, here are the criteria for what I'm looking for, this price range property, this location from the last step, these kind of numbers. You can keep it really simple at first, but you do have to have written criteria because it reminds you of what you're looking for. It also reminds your team members, which we're going to talk about here in a second. When you're talking to your agent, your property manager, it lets them know what it means for you to have a good deal. Step number 5 is to build a team. And I like to think about a team, and I actually got this idea from a book called The Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Gary Keller, is you think about your team as kind of an inner circle, and then you kind of move out from there and kind of get circles that go a little bit farther out. The inner circle are people like your spouse or partner, if you have one, or good friends, family members, people you can talk to who don't have another agenda. They're not trying to sell you something. They're just people who care about you and you can ask questions to. It's better if they also support your goals, your real estate investing goals. It's really difficult if you're a spouse or family member, you're not on the same page. That's kind of step number 1 to work on that. But also as you move out from there, you want to have a circle of people who are kind of like your go-to agents, your go-to property managers, your go-to vendors, attorneys, and you don't have to build all those overnight. You can probably get 1 or 2 people, for example, a real estate agent or a property manager, if you're gonna buy rental properties, and they might be able to help you build the rest of the team. But I remember there's a quote from John Wooden, a Hall of Fame basketball coach, and I love this quote. He said, the star of the team, the key to being a star of the team is to have your good team members. I think I'm butchering that quote, but the point is, if you want to be really good at real estate investing, you got to pick some key team members, recruit them, make sure they're good, because this is a team sport. Especially if you're working a full-time job, you got to depend on them to help you out. So you get your inner circle, you get some of those key people outside of your inner circle, and then you'll add in contractors and vendors and plumbers and other people. All those are really important, but you'll build those over time. But you got to have a good team, and so that's step number 5, is working on that team from the very beginning. Step number 6 is to line up your financing. Real estate investing, if you thought about it as a game, it's basically a game of matching up properties with money. And in a perfect world, you'd have a big pile of cash and you could just go buy the properties without having to deal with banks or financing. But in reality, most of us have to go to the bank and we have to get financing. And so this step is all about lining up your financing before you go out and start searching for properties. It's a key step. If you go start looking for properties and try to buy them, and you don't have the confidence that you can get the money to buy it, the financing, it's gonna be really difficult. And so you can think about the financing in a couple of different categories. One is just traditional financing. So I mentioned going to the bank. So if you get a traditional mortgage, like a 30-year mortgage or a 20-year mortgage, either going through your local bank or a mortgage broker or an online mortgage lender, that is probably the lowest interest rate option. And there are a lot of different programs there. I'm not gonna get into all the details. I'll have an additional resource there that you can check out to see a list of a lot of those different options. But the point is, if you have good credit, if you have some kind of down payment, at least a small down payment, that's a really good option to go for. Some of the downside of that is if you don't have perfect credit, if you don't have the full down payment, or if you just want to move faster to buy a property, that's not always the best option. Sometimes that's the best long-term option. If you're trying to move quickly on a deal, you might want to look at things like private money or hard money loans. They're basically people who have money or small businesses who have money who will loan it to you quickly at a higher interest rate so you can move quickly on a deal, and then later on you might refinance that and pay that higher interest loan off. So you have kind of the traditional financing world, you have the private money, hard money lending world, you also have kind of a commercial lending world, kind of halfway in between, and they do a little bit of both. And so if you go to a local bank and ask for the commercial lending department, that's a whole different category of loans. So there's a lot of different options out there, but like all the other steps, the key is just to focus on one, maybe two. And if you don't know about any of those now that'll be your homework. You'll do some education on those financing options. But step number 6 is to pick that financing option, and then we can move on to the next step. Step number 7 is to save up your down payment or your money for cash reserves. Now this is kind of a basic step in some ways. You know that in most cases, you gotta have some kind of amount of cash to buy a property. Even if you use some of the low down payment loans, like a VA loan or an FHA loan, the chances are you're gonna have to pay some closing costs. You can have some money for repairs, and you definitely wanna set some money aside for reserves when you own a rental property. So how do you get that money? The basics are just save. Save your money, which might mean you have to be patient. I had one person I worked with and helped him buy a property. He waited for a year to buy his first rental property until he could save up the money. He kind of pinched some pennies. He didn't eat out as much for a little while. He saved his money, lived frugally, and that was part of his strategy. So it doesn't sound fancy, but sometimes it just takes saving money. Other times you can find things to sell. Like do you have an extra car that you're driving too expensive of a car? You could sell it and kind of get a simpler one. Could you sell some extra stuff you have? Go through that basement, sell stuff there. Be surprised how much money you can come up with. So save money, sell extra stuff. And then in another case, if you just don't have enough cash, also consider maybe partnering with other people. We got a link in the description to something called credit partnering, where you could use other people who do have the down payment, and you can still be involved in the deal and share the profits with them, and at least get part of a deal instead of having something of nothing. Step number 8 is putting a plan together to find good deals. Now, this can be a lot of fun because finding good deals is a lot like a treasure hunt. You can put everything together that you've learned and put into place for the prior steps. You're gonna go out there and you're gonna find that deal that's gonna help you make a profit, it's gonna help you build wealth. But this is also one of the most challenging points for a lot of new investors, because I often hear things like, hey, my market's too competitive, the market's too hot, there aren't any good deals in my town. And what typically happens when I ask a few more questions, I say, well, how many offers have you made to buy a property? And they'll say, well, 2, 3. And so they got rejected on those 2 or 3 offers, they lost them, and now there's not any good deals. Well, here's the big takeaway for this step, is that if you wanna find good deals, it's a volume game. You've gotta look at a lot of different deals, potentially, before you find one that is good. And in order to do that, I'm gonna use another metaphor. If you were to go fishing and you had to survive by eating fish, would you just put one fishing line in the water? Probably not. You'd probably use 6 or 7 different fishing lines and put them in different parts of the lake so that you could catch fish and eat. Well, finding good deals is a lot like that. You've got to put fishing lines, otherwise known as mailing campaigns or marketing campaigns or MLS campaigns in order to bring those leads and bring those potential deals to you. And so that's a whole nother video in and of itself, but if you look in the description for the video in the companion article, I go through a lot of the different free and low cost ways to do that. One of my favorite is driving for dollars or walking for dollars. You get out in the neighborhood, look around, look for vacant properties, look for rundown properties, look for sale by owners, for rent by owners. In just a 2 or 3 hour period, you might be able to find a lot of potential deals for very low cost. But then there's other ways that cost more money, like direct mail, advertising, getting a website. And so there's a whole spectrum of different ways you can go fishing for deals. And my recommendation is that you implement at least a couple and choose from the choices I give you there, and just get started with some of those so you can get some possibilities that you can make offers on and start moving forward. And that brings us to step number 9. Now this is the last step, but it's probably the most important, because if we don't take all the information you've learned and put it into action, it's all just academic. It's just theory. And I know you want to make progress, and I know you want to buy real properties. I know you really want to achieve financial independence using real estate investing. So I've got 2 tips that might help you implement what you've learned. The first is to schedule a time to work on your real estate investing. Now think about if you had a health issue, let's say you had a medical emergency or a medical problem, you'd probably call up the doctor's office or the hospital and you'd make an appointment, and you would keep that appointment, right? You wouldn't miss that. Well, I kind of want you to think about your real estate investing like an emergency. Your financial independence, your buying your next deal is an emergency, and put it in your schedule. If you're old school like me and you use a paper scheduler, or if you just use your phone or your computer, whatever you use, mark out some time and think about how much time could you set aside every single week. Talk to your inner circle, talk to your partner or spouse. How much time could you spend on real estate investing? Is it 5 hours? Is it 10 hours? Whatever it is, allocate that, mark it off, schedule it in your appointment book or in your calendar, and then stick to it. So you've got these blocks of time to work on your real estate investing. And that brings us to step number 2 of this final step, is to actually make a list of the very next actions you need to do. We've talked about a lot of different things, and I'm sure that some things came up and you're like, that's something I need to do. I need to talk to my mortgage lender. I need to build a team. I need to talk to a real estate agent. I need to put more fishing lines in the water to find more deals. Make a list of all the things you think you need to do in your real estate investing business, and then prioritize. If you could get that down to the next 3 things that you need to do and take action on, and you just did those today or this week, that would make a lot of progress. You could combine doing this week and then next week and the next week, and when these little bitty baby steps of real estate investing progress, if you put all those together, that's how you actually accomplish your goals. So you have a schedule, you have a to-do list, you've narrowed it down and prioritized it, and that is the final step of how to get started in real estate investing. So I'm curious, which one of the 9 steps that we've covered is the most important for you? Which one do you need to do next? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Let me know. And if there's something I didn't cover or you have additional questions about from the video, be sure to also leave a comment and I'd be happy to chat with you there. If you like this video, be sure to hit the like button and share it with your friends. And if you'd like more, I have more videos coming, typically every Friday, so be sure to hit that subscribe button and the little bell so you don't miss anything. And if you'd like additional help getting started with real estate investing, I have a free course which is linked below in the description. Click on that link, you can get the free course. It's given to you over a 7-day period by email, and there's also some videos, and it'll allow you to go into more depth on some of these topics we've covered today in the video. I really appreciate you spending some time with me today. My name is Chad Carson. You can also call me Coach, and this channel is all about investing in real estate, achieving financial independence, and doing more of what matters. See you next time.